There's a new round of the Payroll Protection Program, the PPP, and do you qualify for it? Should you apply? And what are the requirements? We'll cover that in this video. I'm Scott Todd, and I'm glad you're joining me. This channel is dedicated to entrepreneurship, success, and leadership, and we're going to dive into this pretty hot topic right now with the CARES Act and the Payroll Protection Program. Look, I'm driving down the street. Every bank I pass has like on their marquee out there, like apply for the PPP. And this is a program that came out last year when Congress passed the CARES Act last year. They came out with this whole, payroll protection plan. And the whole idea was to give self-employed people self-employed people, but also employers some protection to cover payrolls, right? During the pandemic, how do we make sure that people are taken care of? So Congress comes up with the CARES Act. In the CARES Act is the Payroll Protection Program. There was a batch of funding that was like really hard to get in. I applied. I never heard from the bank. Then what happened was there was a second round, if you will, or additional funding. I shouldn't call it second round, but additional funding. The bank contacted me and said, "Hey, we can process your application now." I had already had it in, but they ran out of money. But when it was refunded, then my application was there and it went through. And the Payroll Protection Program, the PPP, basically allows for if you own a business, like you have an LLC, or even if you are the sole owner of it, like you have no employees, you are eligible for the PPP. If you obviously run a business with employees, well, then you're eligible for this thing as well, and you should really take a look at that. One of the things that a lot of people don't realize about the PPP, though, is not only is it covering if you have employees or if you just have an LLC or some company set up and you're the only kind of employee or the only member, you're making money from your LLC, well, then you are eligible for this thing. But the other thing that people don't realize is that the other group of people that are eligible for the PPP are 1099 people who make 1099. So look, 56% of America has a side hustle. 56% of America has like an LLC or a 1099. And if you have that on your 2019 taxes, you're golden. You should get out there and get more information on the PPP. So you could be eligible for this thing. And honestly, it's kind of like some found money. The government is going to give forgive the money if you meet some criteria. So let's dig a little bit deeper into this thing. Okay, so this is important because it's going to be some money that you have that you might be eligible for and that you might actually have to help you during the pandemic. Okay, so that's what the PPP is. Now, I already kind of talked about who's eligible. Let's dig in on this one. Okay, let's go to here. Let me flip over. Let's look at really who's eligible. Okay, so when we look at this thing and we look at who's qualifying for this thing, there's this document, and I'll link to it. I'll provide you with the link in the description. But in the description, what this says is that this is a 12-page FAQ, and here it talks about, the CARES Act, and it kind of gives you an overview on this. One of the things that I really thought was kind of cool is, you see, look right here, right below this green circle that I have right here. I should have highlighted this thing, but let's put that in red. I love this part. Okay, the U.S. government will not challenge the lender payroll protection actions, okay, that confirmed this guideline. So what the government has done is they have basically said, look, we're going to give you some criteria. As long as the criteria is met, you're golden, and we're not going to ask you any questions. So the lenders have a lot of flexibility with this thing. Okay, so this is not like there's no credit check on this thing. Okay, I don't think I had a credit check on this thing. I think I had to put in my Social Security number, but you know what? I don't think they ever looked at it because I have a hard freeze on my credit. So no. Okay, there's no other requirement on there. It is guaranteed and backed up by the United States government. This is like the easiest money to get if you qualify for it, okay? And you should really do a deep dive to see if you qualify for this, because it can help you. It can help you. So let's keep going. All right. So who is this for? Question number 1 right here. It says, like, if you have on your 2019 IRS form 1040, the 1040 form, Schedule C. So that means that you have self-employment income, line 31. If you have a net profit, well, then you can take that, and that is what they're going to go off of. The bank is going to go off of this. And what's going to happen is they're going to look at it, and if this line 31 is over $100,000, well, you're going to be capped at $100,000. So if your profit from your self-employment is more than $100,000, well, you're capped at $100,000 of profit, right? Shame on you for making more. Just kidding. So let's just keep going further. So basically what it's saying is, step 2 is you take your profit and you divide it by 12. So let's just assume for simple math here that what happened? Let's assume for simple math, you gotta love technology. It's an Apple product. What can I say? Sliding all around. All right. So let's just take this and $100,000. Well, if we take the $100,000, divide that by 12. Well, that's 83, 33, 33, something like that. So that's what it's saying. It's saying that, look, if you made over $100,000 or $100,000, you got to divide that by 12, or you would put in your profit, divide that by 12, and then what you would do is you would then multiply that by the 2.5 right here, 2.5. So what that's saying is that's how much money you're eligible for. So let's just keep math very simple here. I like simple math. Well, let's just say that, you had $8,000, 8 times 2.5. Well, that's 16, that's $20,000. So you could apply at the bank for $20,000. That's you. You're the only employee, or you're the only 1099 employee, assuming that your income or your profit was $100,000 a year. Okay, remember, that's the cap. So you got $20,000 that the United States government's going to guarantee on a loan. Now, what will happen is when the government guarantees that and the bank says, here's your $20,000, you have to show that you actually use the money for like yourself. Like if you have a business, you have to like make sure that you write a check to yourself for that amount. That's like your salary, because you're covering the payroll protection program, right? Like that's what this loan's for, the payroll protection program. So as long as you're giving yourself money to live on, $20,000 over 2.5 months, again in our scenario, well then in that case you can apply to the bank to say, I used it appropriately, I used it for what you told me, therefore I request a forbearance. And the bank will send it to the SBA. And you got to provide documentation like copies of your checks, whatever. They'll send it to the government and say, here's what we got. Do you agree? And the government will say, we agree. And as long as they agree, well, then they will forbear, or they'll forgive the loan. Like it's forgiven. Like here's your $20,000. Congratulations. Now, if you don't write a check to yourself and you don't use it to pay the appropriate expenses, etc., and there's a lot of other rules in here, I'm just talking about the payroll side of it, and there's more to it. But like, if you had other employees, you got to make sure you're paying for the employees and their health insurance and their retirement. Like there's other things that you can do to offset that amount. But I'm just assuming that you and I are just individual people who have businesses, no employees, or that you have a 1099 income. So you'll see, like, this is the opportunity for you to get some money to help you during the pandemic, right? So I hope that that's bringing some value and some clarity to this thing, like, what this whole thing is. Now, there's another note, a couple other notes I saw in here. In here, the other thing that I noticed was, I got to go down a little bit further, is right here. This is basically saying, hey, look, I'm an LLC, what applies to me? Well, look, if you are an LLC and it's the same thing. It doesn't matter if you're a 1099 employee or the LLC, as long as you were able to show that you made a profit in that time frame, you're going to be golden, okay? Like, that's just the way that it is. Now, there are some other scenarios, because remember, this is looking at your income or your tax statement from 2019. But the law, the CARES Act, does say that as long as you were in existence, your business started by February 15th, 2020. So if you had 1099 income before February 15th, 2020, or if your business was established before then, you do actually get to take advantage of it, even if it didn't show up on your 2019 taxes. So think about this for a minute. If you started your business in January of 2020, or the first 15 days of February of 2020, well, then you are eligible to apply, okay? And the rules, I have it right here. Let's see. Of course, I can't find it when I want to. The rule is basically saying that, as long as you were in business by that time frame, then of course you're eligible to go ahead and submit that application. And that kind of talks to the next point, which is, well, how do you apply? Well, if you go to the SBA's website, the SBA actually has a program called Lender Match, where you can put in some information and they will match you to a lender. What I did was I just went to my business bank, like where I bank. That's where I went and I applied. But you should go and you should find like literally any SBA lender can do this. So if you just find any SBA lender, they're able to process this loan for you. And unlike other SBA loans, like typically an SBA loan will have some fees involved with it. With this, there are absolutely no fees involved in this thing. The lender doesn't charge any fees and the SBA doesn't charge any fees. Now, when it comes time to dealing with the payback, let's talk about the payback. The goal here is that you're going to request the amount of money that you absolutely need, right? Like, you're not going to go request money that you don't need. So hopefully you can show, like, this is what I used the money for. It fed my family. It fed me, whatever. Here, we got this. But you're going to go and you're going to provide the documentation. You're going to be able to say the loan is taken care of. Thank you. Now, what if it doesn't get taken care of? Or what if you don't apply for the forgiveness? Well, essentially what will happen is the loan will charge you 1% interest. Geez, 1% interest. Think about that one for a minute. The loan will charge you 1% interest, and you have, if you apply right now, you have up to 2 years to pay it back. Now, if you applied last year, like last summer, you actually have the 1 year to pay it back. But if you apply, I'm sorry, no, I'm wrong. Getting confused. If you got your loan before June 15th of 2020, last year, well, then you have 2 years to pay it back. So you have 1 year deferment and then 1% interest and 2 years to pay it back. From June 15th on, you get 5 years to pay it back. So if the government looks at it and says, no, you didn't use the funds correctly, well, then you got to pay it back, and they give you 5 years to pay it back, but you're only paying 1% interest. Wow. I mean, talk about a good deal. That's a good deal. Now, it makes me nervous, okay? Like, it makes me nervous talking about loans because, look, there's been some shady characters out there, right? Like, you see it all the time. Oh, this guy went and just created a company to go do this. Like, I'm assuming that that's not what you're going to do. Like, you're a legitimate person. You're not going to go do that, and you're legitimate, right? So should you apply? Well, if you meet the requirements and you were in business at the right time frame, well, then yeah, you should go apply. And why not? Like, what's the worst that could happen? They could tell you no, right? Like, isn't that the worst that could happen? Like, you could get rejected, but it doesn't hurt you to get rejected. But I don't think that they're going to get rejected. The problem that I think you're going to run into, the biggest problem that I think you're going to run into, is if you don't take action soon, what I think is going to happen is they're going to run out of funds. Okay. Like, and that's what happened with me. Like, I applied literally when it first came out, they came out on a Friday and I applied on a Sunday. 3 weeks later, I still didn't hear anything. Now, I got to tell you something. When that happened, like when they launched this thing, they were just getting the systems in place. Okay, so their systems were terrible, but it's gotten better since then. Okay, like the process has gotten more fluid and more streamlined. But if you think that this is something that you want to do not delay. Go and start the application process, okay? Go contact the bank. And again, if you need to get matched up with a bank, because like you call your bank and they say, well, we're not doing that, which again, if they're an SBA lender, they're doing it. But if for some reason that they're not doing it, then basically what you do is go to the SBA's website and do the lender match. That's what you want to do, the lender match. And they'll match you with a lender based on your qualifications for that. So look, this is the SBA's Small Business Administration's Payroll Protection Program. It's potentially some free money that you've earned that will help you during this pandemic. And I encourage you that if you meet any of the qualifications that I've talked about or others, and I'll link to the document where you can read through the FAQs yourself. But if this is you, well, go apply. Don't delay. Do it today. And, get some help during the pandemic. I hope I added some value for you today. I appreciate you joining. And you know what? I'll definitely see you in the next video. Take care.